financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is fighting in probate court. On the boxer side of the ring, Brian Small.
Good morning, Ken. And wait, I assure you,
Brian doesn't go to
Brian
probate
has
court.
never been in a boxing ring and
Or probate
should not be. Or probate court. That's true.
You're there as a boxer. You're one of the fighting contestants. And the referee in the middle of the ring, Jeff Linden, with probate experience.
Good morning, Ken.
And on the right side of the fight, and also as a referee who gets to decide who wins the fight and who fights, Pat Simasko.
Right, and that's interesting because as a father, Ken, the worst thing in the world for you is thinking that your kids are going to fight after you pass away.
Oh, yeah, that
It's
would be horrific.
just devastating. And you talk to the parent, oh, my kids are never going to fight. They're not like that. And I go, oh, well, okay. And what happens is you're in family court, you're divorcing your spouse. After mom and dad die, you're divorcing your brothers and sisters. And it's devastating to the family. They fight over the stupidest stuff. It's so sad to see that the legacy that mom and dad are leaving is eaten up by lawyer fees. And
Maybe it's an example
is
to
it-
don't save anything. Live life large. Don't leave anything to anybody else. Don't leave anything they can fight over.
they will fight over the old vacuum cleaner in
I
the
know.
garage that should be thrown in the garbage.
First, they'll fight
The
over the
table.
money.
They're going to fight
and
over
the
the
division.
table.
And then if there's no money, they'll fight over whatever's left to fight
What
over.
they're really
Is
fighting
it
about,
sibling rivalry?
it's really what they're fighting about is the sister is fighting because her sister borrowed her sweater back in 8th grade and didn't give it back, or it came back with a stain on it. Or it just bubbles up after years and years and years. They can't even be in the same room.
I like Jeff's idea, and I actually believe in that concept. It is not at all a priority to me to leave anything to my children, but it doesn't work that way.
Then
Right.
they fight over taking care of dad and mom, their medical decisions.
Yes,
they fight before they die because my sister's not doing it the right way. Oh, come over and help do it
That's
with
a
me. Oh, I
constant-
can't do
That's
that.
a
I'm too
constant one.
busy.
And it's
Right.
always one sibling ends up almost doing all the work, and there's
Guaranteed.
always one sibling that lives out of state that can't do anything.
It's called
That
every
complains about
Sunday
everything.
and every
You're not doing this right.
Saturday.
You're not doing that right.
It's called the armchair quarterback. I'll tell you how to do it, but I sure as hell won't do it for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So the better ones that they stay the hell out of it completely. And the one that's taking care of them, they're upset that they're not getting any help from their brothers and sisters. But what's worse is they're not getting help, and the brothers and sisters are bitching and complaining about how she's doing.
And then mom passes away, and there's $1 million in the estate, and there's 3 siblings, and each one says, well, I'm each entitled to a third.
Yeah.
And the one who did all the work and took care of mom
Right.
and everything else says, hey, wait a second, I should get a bigger share, at least compensate me for what I did. And the other 2 say, are you crazy?
Here's this.
Are you out of your mind?
But does that? But does that?
Wait,
I
let me-
want to know.
wait.
Does that happen when you've done? No, I know it happens, but you've done up a trust and a will for the client, and mom says this is the way it's going to be dispersed. How often do you have when it's supposed to be
Oh, wait.
equally
Hold on.
divided?
Let
me
How
find it,
often
Jeff.
do you
Let me
have
give
a
him an
fight?
example. Here, this you do all the planning, but even though you've done the documents and you've got all the planning, as we've identified, the one child that has the laboring oar of caring for the parents tends to supplement the money with things, and then the ingrate factor comes in, and they want to be reimbursed. And then mom and dad, what they do, instead of funding their trust properly, they still have a bunch of joint accounts, and they give one joint account with one kid, the other one and the third one, but they spend all the money on Junior's account, the one who's taking care of them, so they don't get that money, and now the other two get a third of the other
So
stuff.
the problem
actual
arises
execution
from
doesn't
money that's
happen.
not in the trust.
Right.
Oh, that's just one.
That's
Just
one example.
Okay, here's a fun one. Daughter moves in and takes care of mom for 5 years and wipes her butt and drags her to the couch and all that type of stuff. And mom passes away, and the other kids say, well, she's been living there for free for 5 years.
Yep.
She needs to pay rent for the last 5 years.
That's evil.
Oh, my God.
That's evil.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So
That's just not the...
just categorizing wise, in terms of what these fights are, there's will contests, there's trust disputes, and there's beneficiaries versus the trustee.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong fights.
Yeah. You're not
So,
handling it right. What would you say is the most common one you deal with?
The most common one that we see is, and which drives me crazy because it's the easiest thing to fix. Mom and dad want to avoid probate, right? So they throw the 3 kids on the house, right? Or they put the 3 kids on the cottage as joint ownership. Or they give it with a ladybird deed, because everyone hears about the ladybird deed, and ladybird deeds avoid probate. So a mom and dad pass away, and they say, okay, Ken, let's sell the cottage. I want my money. I'm moving to Florida. And Ken says, I'm not selling. This is my house. I love it
And
here.
you got 3 kids that own it.
They all have to sign off.
Which
you don't
is why,
need to
isn't
sign
it
off.
better to then have it ladybird deeded to the trust so then the trustee can sell the property?
See, that's my point. Everybody, there's lots and lots of ways to avoid probate, and everybody focuses on avoiding probate. Probate's not the problem. It's making sure the right people get it without the fight. So if 3 people are on the deed, all 3 have to sign off. And they don't have to if they don't want to. If it's in the trust, then they say, Brian, you want to live there? Great, buy me out. Oh, I don't have the money. Well, we're going to sell it then. So the trust avoids probate, but all those other deeds that we talked about, they still avoid probate. It just didn't stop the fight.
But they cause a big fight.
It doesn't stop the
The
fight.
trust can stop the fight because the trustee has the power.
Right.
But then so oftentimes
leaves
they
the
make
third
all
category.
they make all 3 of them the co-trustees.
Well, even that though, if mom and dad write it down and say, you know what, you can't, even if it's 3 trustees, there's terms in the trust that say, hey, Jeff is trustee, he can't self-deal, he can't benefit himself, you could force the
But
sale
you
of
need
that.
2 out of 3 votes.
Well, you can force the sale way, way, way easier. And my number one, right, don't put 3 trustees down.
Never,
Never.
No.
never.
Even if it's the bad
Well,
kid,
maybe
don't
3
put
is
the-
better than 2, because 2 on 50-50 is
no
a problem as well.
tiebreaker.
Let's take a break. We'll come back.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
So last question. How old should your granddaughter be before she gets to spend the inheritance all on her own?
Thanks, Grandma. Ciao.
Yeah, thanks, Grandma.
35! You've worked hard your whole life to create a lasting legacy for your heirs. Let Samasco Law help you make the right decisions to protect the ones you love. Samasco Law, protecting what means most, because that's what we do.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
We're back. Jeff, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, so that circumstance is category 3. That's the beneficiaries versus the trustee. The trustee wants to sell the house. 2 of the 3, whatever happens, it's the kid who feels, shorted by it that brings the lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty. The trustee's not acting. It doesn't always avoid the fight. It changes the nature of the fight, and it's easier for the trustee to
So
do
here
what
it
it needs
is.
to do.
When
but
you do a
the fight just
trust,
changes.
when you do a trust, a revocable trust, it's designed to avoid probate. That doesn't mean it won't stop the fight.
Right.
You say, make sure my kids never fight. Well, that was your job, raising them, not my job. But the probate court is there to fix the problem. You can get in there and talk to the probate judge a lot quicker than having this big, massive lawsuit. Sometimes if you put the kids on the house, joint tenants with full rights to survivor, you can't force them to sell the house. So
Right.
No, I had a client who had done that years earlier,
indestructible.
and
Yeah.
he wanted to sell his house and downsize, and his kid goes, "Write me my check."
Right.
And
What are you talking about?
he's like, "But it's my house."
Right.
And he had had a falling out with his son, and
Yeah.
so he was stuck in this giant big house forever.
Right.
Until he died. Because
And that's what happens when the people come in. Why do I need a trust? My cousin's girlfriend's aunt's neighbor down the street in California did a deed. It had JTWS on it, and it worked perfect for them. Yes, absolutely. But in this scenario here, is it going to work
what
perfect
people
for
don't
us?
realize is, first of all, as lawyers, when we handle these problems, this is what we see. So we see on a regular basis where the families are not getting along, the siblings are fighting, and it
Right.
ends up as a contest. There are that may only be, I don't know what the percentage of. That may only be 5%, 7% of all estates that go through the problem. The other night, if there's no problem, it doesn't matter what the trust says. It
Oh,
doesn't
they're
matter
gonna
what the
fight.
deeds say. If
we don't hear about it.
If 2 kids get along and say, let's just sell
work
this
it
and
out.
we're cooperative, you don't need a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's when the fights occur.
Normally
and
when
that's what this is about.
Normally when mom and dad writes it down, they follow it, right? They want to follow mom and dad's wishes. But when they don't write it down, and it's up to kids to decide.
Then they interpret their own.
Yeah.
their
Shameless
own
plug
interpretation.
moment, though. But that's why it's better if you're getting representation for drafting these documents, that you have lawyers that just do documents, and they don't go to court, and they don't see the fights. And I think they're, in my opinion, they don't draft as well. You have lawyers that only do the fights, and they don't draft the documents. And,
It's very true.
And then they know how to do the fight. If you have somebody that has experience in both, then you're drafting with an eye towards where the problems can arise to try and avoid them in the first place.
That's true not only in probate and in estate planning, that's
But in
true in
business law and-
contracts.
Well, here's the one that we
Because,
talked about.
Contracts, all the time when I'm drafting a contract, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the history of the lawsuits that I've been through that have, people, classic in a contract, those last 2 pages of all the miscellaneous provisions, everyone thinks, well, that's just standard
right,
stuff.
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times those little clauses, like the no oral modification clause and things like that, parole evidence rule, how those rules become the big fight in the lawsuit.
Let me talk about that, because back in the old days, in the 90s, you could pass away with $600,000 going to the kids tax-free. And so if you had 2 separate trust agreements, you could pass down $1.2 million. So everybody did these really complicated AB trusts, And then all of a sudden, 30 years later, it's 14 million you could pass down. So there isn't a big need.
Per estate,
But
right.
they're keeping those old trusts, and those old trusts have the most egregious language in it.
Yeah, restrictions on use of the funds. It's terrible.
God, it can't change
Because the family
beneficiary.
trust has the 5 and 5 power.
All
the wife,
that.
the spouse can use the money
All
for her
that.
reasonable maintenance
All
support,
that.
but she
All
can't
that.
invade, because if she could invade, then it would
And that-
then it would fall into the marital deduction, and it would be subject to tax.
And that 100-page trust that they never read one word of it
Right.
30 years ago is coming back to haunt them, because that one word in page 49
Right.
is totally
because
screwed
those
you.
There's a
trusts
hole in your
always those trusts, that plan always funds the money first to the restrictive trust.
Yeah, because of the tax benefit.
Yeah,
on
the
top.
the marital trust, the unrestricted trust, only gets a dime when you've exceeded the exemption amount, which is now 14 million.
Yeah.
For some people, when it was drafted, that number could have been as low as 250,000.
Yeah,
That's
way
what it was.
low.
I mean,
when I got out of law
it is
school.
interesting to note that there are so many old documents out there, and people think that they're still good. And the reality is that they'll be honored,
Yeah.
but they're not good.
Right.
And the tax. I mean, back in the day when I started, I remember trusts being like this.
Well, we
you know?
charged by the pound back then,
Yeah,
so.
seriously. And now the paperwork's a lot thinner and more effective because we don't have to tax plan for the
I'm
majority
going to
of everybody.
disagree on that. I'm going to disagree for one reason, and especially with civil litigation. Back in the old days, they were this little because everybody typed up with a typewriter. Now they're word processing. They hit send, and 150 pages come out at one time,
Well,
and they don't even know what the words are.
Yeah,
in there.
but you're going. I'm talking
I'm way
about,
older than you. Don't
yeah.
remember those typewriters.
You are
with
not way older than me.
Copy paper
And
I was around for carbon paper.
I
Carbon
did bankruptcy
paper.
petitions with carbon
Oh,
paper
I
when
did
I
'em.
started.
I did 'em.
And they used to be like 20 pages long. Now they're 85 pages
My
long.
dad goes,
So
"Why do you
he's
need
right.
a-"
Those were carbonless.
They were not
Not
carbon
mine.
paper.
They were
carbon.
No,
Five
no.
copies.
I remember it had the carbon paper that had to go in.
When
to-
I started, we had
fall
the
on the
first.
floor.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck THAV Gross had a Xerox machine, but it was only allowed to be used for important projects.
Right.
If you were doing regular correspondence, you had to use carbon paper.
That's what my
for
dad
the second
said.
copy.
Why do you need a
I said
copy?
my first question as a young lawyer was, okay, explain to me the difference between something that's important and big versus something that's not. I immediately, first executive move I made as a young associate was everything goes to the copy machine. Who wants black print all over their minutes?
Amen. With whiteout. Yeah, the different color whiteout for the
And the
page
whiteout
underneath it.
and the Selectric typewriter.
Yeah.
Remember those? All right, let's take a break. When we come back, let's zero in. Let's pick one probate fight and work on that one. We'll be back.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Okay, Lisa, we have one last question for you. How old should your grandkids be before they can take the money and spend it on their own?
Thanks, Grandma. Thanks. And I'm getting mine next week.
35. You've worked hard your whole life to create a lasting legacy for your heirs. Let Samasco Law help you make the right decisions to protect the ones you love. Samasco Law, protecting what means most, because that's what we do.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV Gross has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon Building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Samasco. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV GROSS, Samasco Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
All right, we're back. So we got last segment. What is the most common fight? And let's dig into that. Who wants to take it?
I'll do it.
Go for
And
it.
it's never a fight because it's always a loser. Dad's on his second marriage. He says, the will says, I want my stuff to go to my second wife, but when she dies, I want it to go to my kids. Dad dies, it goes to the second wife, she cuts those kids out immediately. Why? Because the will doesn't mean anything. When the wife's on as beneficiary of the 401k and the second wife's on the beneficiary of the life insurance and the wife is on the house, Dad dies, it goes to her. It's hers to do whatever she wants, and she will cut his kids out every single time.
My parents. My grandfather remarried Rose. Of course, we all hated Rose. My mother didn't like Rose. My aunt didn't like Rose. So as children, we didn't like Rose. My grandfather gets sick. Rose is married to him. She talks him into changing all of his CDs because she's worried about herself.
Right.
And makes her the beneficiary of all the CDs.
But she can trust. You can trust me.
Grandpa dies. So now the CDs are all to Rose. 4 months later, Rose dies.
Guaranteed. Who got them?
Rose's children.
Guaranteed.
Who were friends or associates of my parents. My dad was a serious tennis player, very competitive tennis player. Rose's children was another serious competitive tennis. They were fighting on the tennis court for 25 years.
Yeah.
They weren't really good friends. They were very competitive. My father didn't have any money. The other guy did. And they bitched about the fact that my mother's father's money ended up going to those kids. And they called a lawyer, and the lawyer said there's nothing you can do.
And that's what happens every time. And every time in the office, oh, you can trust me, honey. And it's the wife or the husband. It goes both ways. And then dad dies or mom dies. It goes to dad, and they're at the funeral. And the deceased kid comes up, hey, I wanted to get some of Dad's war medals. All they want is his money. And then her kids come out of the woodwork. Oh, he's out of the woodwork. So that immediately causes a rift, and it's the fight.
You have no friendship between the siblings of two different marriages.
Ready for this one?
Right.
My mom died. My dad remarried, so that's my stepmom. I did my stepmom's estate plan, and I cut myself out of her estate. I did it. And after mom died, the 5 kids, we say, you know what? We don't care what mom did. We don't care what dad did. We decided to share everything equally. We're the ones that say, you know what? Money is not worth fighting over. It's better to have family. We were one of the very, very few.
Not necessarily one of the very, very few. You're one of the ones that there was no lawyer. We didn't hear about that case, because if the kids if you do the right thing and you get along with your family and your siblings, it doesn't end up being a fight. It's when it's a fight
how do they
hear
solve
about
that problem from the standpoint
Okay.
of drafting a trust?
Here it is, I'll
so
tell
that
you.
you don't end up with the kids of the deceased father
Here's
not
the
getting
key.
a penny.
There's a drop-dead date that you have to protect your kids by, and that's a day before you drop dead, because afterwards it's long gone. And you have to realize that the will doesn't mean diddly squat. It's the beneficiaries or the joint ownership on the account. So you have to create a trust agreement, second wife, second husband, third. A lot of times it's the wife that inherited the money because her husband died, or she was the working person and now she's a single person and she's marrying this next guy. You have to create a trust agreement. Says, you know what, honey, I love you. I want to protect you. You get the income. You get the principal if you need it. You get to live in the house. But when you die, it ain't yours to give away. It's mine that'll go to my kids.
The key is having those trusts. They have to be well thought out. They have to be funded. And you have to make sure that whoever the trustee is over them, that trustee is not in a position to change.
Let me give you the
contract.
real answer on that, though you're absolutely correct. You got to go to a lawyer that knows what the hell he's doing to give you those options. Because most
Absolutely.
financial advisors, put your wife on, and if she dies, it goes to your kids. Well, if she survives you, it's hers. So you need a lawyer. Like you go to the UAW lawyers, great guys, they don't go into that complex stuff. It's the cookie quarter.
I did one
stuff.
recently, last quarter, and it was a sizable estate. Both husband and wife have good incomes. They have they have children from different marriages. It was a very long, thorough process. It wasn't a simple estate plan. It took a lot of time to get it right, but it's that important. You have to get it right.
Isn't
because
it funny,
if you get
though?
it wrong, it's a complete
So here's a
mess.
question: when the clients are sitting in front, which is again one lawyer representing 2 people, there's conflicts there. You're supposed to have to tell them that they can almost get they should
You should
talk
tell them
about
advice to get separate counsel.
lawyers.
Right.
But they look at each other. You can trust me, honey. Right? Everybody say, "Oh, you can trust me." I would never
And then
do
when
that.
as the lawyer that's drafting it, you have to draft it from the perspective of not allowing either one of them to trust each other, and make sure that the document covers
That
the
is the
situation.
longest ride home after your office because they got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, but it works more often than not as transparency.
Yeah.
When the couples that come in and I don't want anybody to know what my document says,
Yep.
that
Amen.
breeds fights later. If everybody knows what the plan is when you make the plan, it goes a long way to avoiding fights
Amen.
later.
On that note, be transparent. Have a great week. We'll be back next
That
week
is
with Law and
so
Reality.
true.